You're in the loop. We're here to discuss the ups, downs and sideways of the sport of figure skating and maybe give you +5 GOE along the way. Let's introduce this week's hosts. Hi, I'm Gina, and I'm tired because this season is made of suffering if you live in the Asia-Pacific region. You can find me on Twitter at 4atwizzles.
I'm Niamh, and I'm neglecting my real-life responsibilities to watch multiple skating competitions at the one time. You can find me on Twitter at triple-axel, but with an I.
Hi, I'm Maryam, and I've been in a constant state of delirium the past couple of days as a result of 3 hours of sleep. I'm on Twitter at LuckyLoops, 2 Y's, 2 S's.
And I'm Nina, and I spent my weekend running away from medical school to Toronto to watch Autumn Classic in person and crying over Yamato Ro. You can find me on Twitter at Yonkai Timpu. For this episode, we're going to be talking about Ondrej Nepela Trophy and Autumn Classic International. But first, we've got some news announcements in the sport of figure skating.
So our first news is that Yuzuru has a new partnership with Daniel Eaton. He was the 2014 Four Continents bronze medalist. So that's nice. After her split with Gamelin, she has a new partner. Yay.
Wish her the best.
Yes.
Alina Zagitova withdrew from Ondrej Nepela Trophy this week due to some issues with her travel documents, and she's now been assigned to compete at Nebelhorn next week. I hope that works out.
So there have been many updates to the entries for the 2018 to 2019 Grand Prix series. Kevin Amos from France has been assigned to International de France. He has competed at this past Autumn Classic this weekend.
And for more news and further updates on the Grand Prix assignments and changes in competitions, programme announcements and stories you may have missed during the week, make sure to check out our website inthelowpodcast.com for weekly roundups of figure skating related news.
Well, we may have just seen perhaps the greatest skater or one of the greatest skaters of all time, certainly of this era.
All right, so let's move on to our main segment. So first, we've had a few competitions now, a couple of the Challenger Series and the Junior Grand Prix. What are our impressions of the season so far?
I mean, I hope it's not that I'm in Stockholm Syndrome after this whole weekend, but I'm enjoying the season. I think it's been really good to give us a sense of where everyone is, and it does seem like a lot of people are in similar states of having promising starts, which is really good to see, but everything is still a bit unfinished, as it always is at the beginning of the series.
So far, we've only seen, in the senior circuit, we haven't seen any Grand Prix series events. We've only seen challengers, and those are usually more relaxed because they don't have as much weight in as the Grand Prix series competitions do. So it's nice to see skaters relaxed and ready to debut their programs no matter how they go. It's to get your feet wet at the beginning of the season, test out your programs and see what you need to work on for the rest of the season. So I'm excited to see all these programs develop.
I do think there has been a lot of, we've only had a few competitions, but there has been a lot of discourse and discussions on scores and how we can compare them. Especially with the new scoring system, no one is really completely 100% certain on how everything's working out. So I think that especially has been playing to it because none of the judges are completely confident, I think.
And I think it's come up a lot because we just had Lombardia Trophy last week, which seemed to be rather lenient on the scoring. And then we've just come off of Autumn Classic, which seemed to be quite a bit in the opposite direction. So people have been talking a lot about whether or not you can compare scores across competitions.
I mean, I think everyone's been told at some point that you're not supposed to compare scores from across competitions. I got told that yesterday by someone.
I got told that last night.
Yeah. So there is a lack of consistency in standards in judging, and I have a problem with people saying that you're not supposed to compare scores, because I do think that does endorse a lack of standards, and scores across competitions should be comparable.
I agree that scores should be comparable in an ideal situation where judges are completely competent and the ISU knows what it's doing. However, when you have a competition where the technical panel is calling every single lutz, every single flips, whether it warrant a call or not, versus a competition where the technical panel is ignoring every wrong edge, ignoring every under rotation, giving spins that were invalid, +5 GOE, it becomes hard to compare. And so whilst we should be able to compare, it raises the question on can we? This applies especially to the judging panel. Like, the difference in scoring between, for example, Lombardia and Autumn Classic was ridiculous. And especially even just in the competition this weekend, in Ondrej Nepela, Michael Nepela got 91 in PCS compared to Yuzuru's 87. And whilst, yeah, Yuzuru's program wasn't completely perfect, Yuzuru would generally tend to score a lot higher than Michael in PCS. So it raises a question on if scores should be comparable. Why does stuff like this happen?
I mean, there's just a lot of inconsistency overall. I mean, even just, so looking at cross competition scoring, I mean, Shomuna's free skate is incredibly empty. But he got a transition score in PCS of 8.85, and then Yuzuru Hanyu got 8.70 for his free skate, which I think was almost, I hate to say overstuffed with transitions because they're important, but it felt like he had poorly paced them. So the fact that that was like ranked as lesser, and if I recall correctly, someone actually gave him a 7.75 in transitions. It feels like the judges are not at all on the same page of how they're supposed to be grading these things. And it makes it very odd when you look at the protocols and you're trying to gauge how the skaters are doing versus some of their peer competitors that they haven't met on the circuit yet.
But on that note, it is important to remember that the score for transitions is not just on quantity, but it's on quality as well. So when you do have overstuffed programs where they are rushed, they shouldn't necessarily be getting high scores because the quality isn't there. But the thing with Shoma's program is that he doesn't have any of the other criteria for getting transition scores.
It's very easy to do a nice spread eagle when it's the only thing you have.
A 20-second spread eagle.
But I feel like both Autumn Classic and Lombardia were, Challenger Series competitions, so they both kind of have the same tier of judges. So this, like, the judges are at the same skill level, probably have the same level of training. So you would think that the scores would be similar. Like, of course, like, if you had nationals where everybody's like if it's Canadian nationals, everybody's Canadian.
No, really.
Like, versus worlds, like, that's going to be different judges. But for these events, you'd think the judges have a bit more similar mindset, but that doesn't happen to be the case. Like, we saw, like, you guys mentioned all the discrepancies, and it's like for Satoko Mihara, for example, in her short program, they called 2 of her jumps under rotated, and then in her free skate, they pretty much ignored the under rotations. So, and it's the same exact tech panel. So it just really confuses me. Like, the tech panels should be consistent, whether they choose to be harsh or they choose not to. And it should be, like, consistent across all of the Challenger series. Like, not just one. It's not like you can just choose to be, harsh on this competition and the other tech panel chooses to be nice, because that's not fair for the skaters that are going to be judged by the harsher tech panel. So I do hope that we see more consistent scoring when it comes to the actual Grand Prix series and for continents and worlds, but we'll see how that plays out.
I really hope so, because looking at like the short program protocols from Autumn Classic, Jinhwan got a -1 from one judge and a 4 from 2 other judges on like the exact same spin. And when you just see that sort of scoring, you're just like, are they even aware what they're supposed to be checking off?
I don't think they are.
I'm literally looking at it, I'm like, how did you go from -1 to 4 on the same spin?
It's because they're not thinking about what they're actually scoring.
I mean, this is why I'm not a judge, is because I would just be like, I like you and that looked pretty, +5.
That's what they do. Apparently that's fine.
And even like Jin's fall, like a bunch of them gave him -4, and then some of them were like -1.
Yeah.
What?
It's like supposed to be like it's an automatic -5. Like, I've seen -5s for like even 2-footed, so to not give 1 for a fall is like
Yeah, I think I remember seeing someone got a -5 and it wasn't even, I think it was Wakaba. She got a -5 and it wasn't even a fall.
It was a 2-footed, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, then why do you not give -5 for an actual fall?
I know.
I mean, I guess if you fall gracefully.
The only fall that I think should have got positive GOE was Shoma's in 4 Continents last year, because it was exactly on the music. It was right on that clattering sound in his music. It was amazing.
I think we should give a shout out to that split fall when he landed that one jump.
That wasn't a fall, that was a creative exit.
+5 GOE for harder exit.
So the explanation of how to use the +5 -5 GOE scale was really abysmal. How many of you watched the webinar?
Me.
Watch parts of it.
I saw some videos, especially the ones with like comparing Satoko's spin and like the triple axel jump.
Fabio Bianchetti should never take on teaching because that was the worst explanation of how to use it. There are instances of such wide variation between judges, and it suggests to me that judges aren't really thinking about how to apply the grade of execution. So I'm going to give an example that's going to make me really unpopular.
Ooh, go ahead.
So at Autumn Classic short program, for the men's, the GOE range awarded to Yuzuru Hanyu's quad toe triple toe was between -1 and +3. My understanding of it is that we should picture every jump starting at 0, starting at the base value, and then we weigh up the positive and negative features to find the grade of execution. So for positive features for this element, I would say it met bullet 1, which is good height and length, bullet 4, the steps preceding, and bullet 6, that it matches the music. That would give it a positive value of +3. For the negative features, there was a lot of flow and rhythm between the jumps in combination, which carries a negative value of -2 to -3. The rotation on the triple toe was also suspicious because he took off from a near standstill, and so the landing was a little questionable. So to a stingier judge, that could be an additional -1. So for this element, I would say an acceptable range of GOE would be between +1 and -1. 3 judges gave him +3 for that element, and I find that really puzzling.
It was me. I was the judge.
Yeah, I think it would help the judges if they maybe had bullets to check off, what they saw in the jump. So that way you can hold the judges accountable for the GOE that they give. Because right now, what they do is just they look at the jump, they say, oh, that looks like a +5, GOE jump, but what does that actually mean, So if they had bullets to check off, like Gina was mentioning, for good height, for difficult entries and exits and that kind of thing, then you can see that the bullets they check off, and if they had like a bad landing, if they had an under rotation, they could check those bullets to subtract the points. So hopefully they could maybe consider this sometime in the future, because I feel like it would increase the consistency a lot on the scoreboard.
I just find we're having the same issues that we did with the +3, -3 GOE system, where judges would be given scores that make it look as if they're watching completely different things. So a judge that gave, for example, Shoma's Axel +3 and another one that gave it -2. And it's like, how are you watching the same jump?
I think that was like a +3 for presence of an axle.
Well done, you did it!
I mean, it's Worlds 18 men's all over again. You didn't fall, get all the points.
I think the new system just highlights this issue even more.
Yeah, it definitely does. And like, I would really enjoy seeing the bullet points. I feel like they'd offer a lot of accountability and transparency in judging, which is something that people often feel is lacking. I'm not sure if it would actually lead to any changes in behavior, or if they just start then, instead of just picking a number out of a hat, it feels like they pick bullet points and just be like, I think that was well matched to the music, and like, that's my opinion.
Another issue I think we've seen so far this season, this isn't a new issue, this has been going on for years and years and years upon season. There's a certain cap on scores if there are multiple serious errors, and they are very vague, insufficient definitions of what this means. Like, is a fall a serious error? Is a stumble or a step out a serious error? What about invalidated spin? It is recommended that an obvious error in a program warrants a cap of 9.0. But does this, for example, mean a fall in a jump really affect a skater's skating skills or their musicality? Like, why does a fall in their axle mean that their step sequence is only a 9, their skating skills and their step sequence be damaged?
There's another issue I have with the 9.0 cap, where it feels like some judges will take that to mean like, oh, he should be, like, I would give him a 9.25, but it's capped, so I'm going to give him a 9.0, whereas other judges, it feels like they completely just shift all of their points down by 1. So you end up with a weird thing where some of the judges will give them 9.0s because they're capped, and others will give them like 7 point something.
I think that's what we saw at Autumn Classic.
I think there's a trend in judging where if one section of the PCS mark is low, they all have to be low. And like, this isn't even just for the cap. For example, if their transitions are bad, but their musicality is good, judges will boost up their transitions to a 9.5 purely because the musicality was a 9.5. It should be where they are judged specifically on the different sections and not just on an overall spectrum.
Isn't that Eteri's entire strategy?
Yeah.
Like she stuffs the programs full of transitions to boost that transition score so that everything else will be scored high. Isn't that her entire strategy?
Also, just my opinion on the issue, on the topic of what a serious error is I feel like a fall, a stumble, a step out should count, but I personally don't think an invalid spin or under rotation should count, because I feel like when it says serious, I believe it's that it affects like the technical prowess and like the artistry of the program itself. So I feel like as long as it's an error that you can see to like without really looking at it in like slow-mo or on replay, then it should be apparent.
I believe that the actual definition is anything that interrupts the flow of the program. So
yeah, that's what I meant. And so I'm like, I feel like an under rotated jump, if it's like right on the edge, it doesn't interrupt the flow. Neither does necessarily an invalid spin.
It's just like some falls, they don't necessarily interrupt the like the flow of the program. Like some people position their jumps such that they land on notes of music, and especially if like the music is dramatic, if they land on if they fall on a dramatic note of music, it's not actually bad. It kind of, it kind of matches the music, but I don't think they should subtract from skating skills. I think they should, subtract from musicality, because it does affect the musicality a little bit, especially when the skaters has to get up and get back into their interpretation of the music. But I just don't think it should affect like transitions or skating skills.
I think what you were saying about the falls not affecting the flow of the program, like if we look back at Yuzuru Hanyu from Sochi Olympics, where the first two jumps in his free skate were a fall, but if a viewer had to tune in straight after those jumps, you would not have known he had fallen because the rest of the program was completely perfect.
And like people think, like people watching the Olympics, oh, he fell, why should he get gold? Like falling is a normal part of figure skating. Like you see it quite often.
People watching the Olympics don't necessarily know that.
My dad thought that if you fell in a program, you were automatically disqualified. And I turned around and said
Amazing.
There would be...
That means all the top men are disqualified.
There would be 0 skaters.
Junghan won Pyeongchang Olympics.
Pretty
I support that.
I support this.
So something that I think we all noticed in this weekend's competitions is that pairs and ice dance in particular are kind of dead. I was under the impression that there being a power vacuum in ice dance would make it really interesting, but so far this season, I was incorrect.
From what I've learned from watching the Junior Grand Prix, junior dance is where it is at.
It really is. Like a lot of the junior dancers, they have so much better choreography, like way better lift speed, and their programs are way more entrancing than the senior ice dancers. So yeah, it really says something about like the skill level of the ice dancers and left this season.
So we're going to talk about our first competition of the weekend now, Ondrej Nepela Trophy. And guys, what were your general impressions of the competition?
The streaming was bad. Like the live stream was not great, although it was on YouTube, which it's nice, especially for an international viewer, that other than the Grand Prix series, especially in the UK, we don't really have much access. There isn't anything in the UK, for example, to go actually see. So it's nice that there is a YouTube stream, but the live stream wasn't great. The camera would be constantly going out of focus. There was a hand covering the actual skater for a good 5 minutes. Someone had a hand in front of the camera.
I mean, we say someone, but that's almost certainly the camera operator.
And if you weren't able to watch the stream live, there wasn't a way to catch up because copyright claims on the music blocked the stream replay. And still now there are a lot of, I know for example Keiji Tanaka's free skate was only uploaded this morning. Like the uploads of individual programs have been delayed, so it's been hard to catch up on what you've missed, etc. from a instant angle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, not to whine. Watching from Korea was really difficult. The events that I could watch tended to start at 8 p.m. and run until about midnight. And I couldn't watch them on work nights. But on the days where I couldn't stay up all night, I could catch up on Autumn Classic quite easily. But I could not catch up at all on the Nepela Trophy because the streams were blocked and nothing was available. So it was really difficult to watch this one from Korea.
I think it's important to note that pairs and ice dance was really empty at this competition, so we're not really going to talk about them in detail in comparison to the single events because there were a lot more depth in these disciplines.
But we will mention like the medalists of the event. So for the pairs, what we have is for gold, we have Ashley Kane and Timothy Leduc from USA. So for silver, we have Gianna Stellato and Nathan Bartolome from US. And in third place, we have Dina Kudryevsteva and Yulia Spiridonov from Russia.
So for ice dance, we had Victoria Sinitsina and Nikita Katsilipov from Russia. And in second, we had Lorraine McNamara and Quinn Carpenter from the USA. And in third, we had Bettina Bobova and Sergei Mozgov from Russia.
So let's talk about the men for a little bit. So in first place, we had Mikhail Korada from Russia. He got gold with 274.37. In silver, we had Sergei Voronov from Russia. He got 239.73. And in bronze, we had Keiji Tanaka of Japan with 221.92. How did we feel about the men's competition?
I'm impressed that Keiji got bronze, given that almost every jump was popped.
It wasn't that bad. Like, he did pop a few jumps, but overall, he did land his triple axel, which is more than what you could say for some men. So
some men didn't even attempt. I really need to stop giving Diva crap.
No, it's fine. So first, I would like to thank God and also Jesus that Mikhail ditched the quadlets for now, because I'm really sick of seeing him fall on it.
I do hope that his team is like working on it.
I think it'll come back.
he has he has one of the prettiest quadlets ever, and like some of the prettiest quads just in general. He has really good height and his landings are really airy, but because he gets like such good height and distance, the falls are kind of hard to watch.
Especially when they're every competition.
Yeah.
I like his short program a lot more than his free skate. So his short program was to Muse, I Belong to You. Not my favourite Muse song, but it's fine. So some areas of his score for his short program did seem a little bit on the low side compared to other competitors in previous competitions. For example, his transition score was 8.65. Compared to Shoma Uno, who got 9.05, I think Mikhail deserved to get the higher score there. The criteria for transitions is continuity of movement, variety, difficulty, and quality. In my opinion, Mikhail hit those criteria a lot better than Shoma if we're just comparing those two performances. Even though I prefer Shoma's skating, and I do think his program has the potential to be the better program of the two, I do think that Mikhail deserved to get the highest score there. It's not so much that I think that Mikhail should have got in the 9s, but that Shoma should have been scored less.
But Lombardia.
Yeah, Lombardia. So on the note of scores, Judge 6 gave Mikhail a 0.5 in interpretation in his short program. Nitpicking individual scores from individual judges is usually a very pointless task, unless you're noting evidence for bias, because usually that one judge scoring differently doesn't make a difference to the average score that they're actually given. But this one was clearly a mistake, and it should have been flagged either by the computers or by the referee.
Yeah, there could be like a button that says like, are you sure you want to submit this?
Yeah. Like something should pop up and be like, are you sure? Is that really a score? So this was thrown out as lowest score, but it's a little bit different if a judge had intended to give something more in step with the other scores given. say 8.5, that score wouldn't have been thrown out as the lowest score, and it would have changed his overall score for his interpretation from 8.85 to 8.9. It's not that big of a difference, but that 0.5 really makes a difference.
Wasn't Worlds 2014 like something like 0.33, like something ridiculously close?
Especially at like Worlds, because at the moment, Worlds can be really tight at the short program. It can be the difference between like 0.1. So be more careful.
I mean, I really liked his short program choice. I've often had issues connecting to Michael's skating in the past, but I do think that this music style suits him, and I think it's the most comfortable, or at least close to the most comfortable I've seen him, especially this early in the season, as it is only the first competition he's done, unless you count the Russian test skates. This program does have some really interesting choreography moments, and I do hope it grows during the Grand Prix season. However, I don't have much hope, considering he is assigned to Helsinki and Rostelecom.
So unlucky.
Rustem is not in a good mood with him, which is a pity, because it's true. I didn't like either of his programs last year, and I felt that he kind of looked very uncomfortable in them. But he just seemed to be skating very freely at Nepela, and it was a good look for him. I think that I prefer the short program to the free. But I do think that they both have potential to be pretty good programs.
Another thing that was noticeable at Ondrej Nepela was Sergei Voronov. Over the last season, I think especially, he really, he has been one of the top, he's been to and fro, if you know what I mean. But last season he won the NHK and made the Grand Prix final, which I know I especially wasn't expecting. Sergei is 30 years old, and not only landing but also attempting not only quad toes but also quad loops. This definitely adds a different perspective to the idea that skaters have to retire at 24, 25 because they're too old. Like Sergei and Alexei Bichenko are both proving that age doesn't automatically mean you must retire. There are skaters successful at older ages. For example, Karolina Kostner set a personal best of just over 80 points at the 28 Worlds, and she's 31. Aliona Savchenko was 35 when she won Pyeongchang. Consensus, Javier Fernandez, come back.
Yeah, don't leave us.
Please.
You've still got like 10 years. It's fine.
He's living his best life in his furry costumes.
I really hope he turns up at Japan Open just dressed as an orangutan.
But no, it is very cool to see Voronov doing quads at 30, and I've always enjoyed watching Bichenko skate. He skates a lot of joy. And I feel like there is a certain amount of maturity and happiness that older skaters can bring to the table. And I think it's always good to have that around. For the ladies' competition, the gold medal went to Rika Kihira from Japan with a score of 218.16. And then the silver medal went to Elizabeth Tosinbayeva from Kazakhstan with a score of 192.30. And the bronze medal went to Stanislava Konstantinova from Russia with a score of 180.02.
So, Rika Kihira.
I love her. Her free skate, Beautiful Storm by Jennifer Thomas, is now the current world record holder. For the free skate, she had 2 triple axels in the free. She had 8 rotated triples. She had the first lady to land a triple axel triple toe in a senior international comp. She did a really good job.
She has a lovely style of skating. It's both light and airy, but also really powerful, and I really enjoy watching her. All of her jumps have lovely height and really quick rotations. She's got beautiful spins. I'm really looking forward to seeing her in the Grand Prix series.
I'm really happy she's in the Grand Prix series.
She deserves to be in it. She's really, really talented. She has a lot of just raw talent. This was a really good start, a really good senior debut for her. So excited to see how she grows over the rest of the season.
I think also Elizabeth, it was her first competition under Ettore again after leaving Brian Orser and the TCC camp. And also an actually choreographed Moonlight Sonata. Wow, who would have thought?
Amazing. It's her first competition back with Ettore, and she has exceeded her previous performance component scores best in both programs. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, I don't know if it's that she happens to mesh better with that style of training camp. if it's
It
an
could
issue
be.
of having maybe more attention now that she's a returning or a new skater at that camp versus at CCC.
Yeah, some people just don't, like, not every coaching style is going to be right for everyone.
You can't send every skater to Brian Orser, as much as people may try. The Chinese Fed can try, doesn't mean it'll work.
Okay, so our next competition this weekend was Autumn Classic International.
Oh boy, was it.
Oh, yes. So what were our general impressions of this competition?
Judges were harsh. Like, it felt like the technical controller called everything. Lots of edge calls, lots of under rotation calls. It was pretty consistent though, which was nice.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with them being harsh, but that's like if and only if they're like not selectively harsh, so they're not like harsh on some people, but then like give leeway to others, which they didn't. So that was good.
I thought the judging was pretty accurate. There wasn't really any scores that I was particularly shocked at. I know some people, there was some discourse, shall we say, on certain skaters' scores, but personally I thought all the scores were pretty fair.
Yeah, same. I thought that the scores were fine. I didn't have a problem. So I think one thing that I took away from Autumn Classic International is that a lot of people really need to get better at tempering their expectations when it comes to early season competitions, especially when it comes to the big name skaters, because there was a lot of people who maybe expected perfect performances from your world champions, your Olympic champions.
It's the first
Not
competition.
everyone can be perfect. Yeah, it's September.
Just because they are an Olympic champion or an Olympic medalist doesn't mean that they're never going to fall.
Although I do think there's a difference between a unclean program and a underdeveloped as such program, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. I think from a lot of the skaters, especially in the singles disciplines, pretty much everyone was in that stage of not being fully cooked.
Like, a lot of them just got their choreo this summer, they haven't had that much time to work on it. They have a long way to go in terms of their packaging, but it will naturally progress as the season progresses.
I don't know if it was just that Autumn Classic is the only one where I've really given full attention to the choreography of each and every skater because I was there in person. But it felt like there was a lot of repetitive choreography this year across all the disciplines. The thing that stood out to me is basically this is the season of knee slides.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like, I was counting, and Jason Brown has 4 knee slides in his short program.
I mean, in fairness, Jason Brown has had knee slides in every single program.
Yes, but he came later in the competition, and I was like, this is like the 12th knee slide I've seen in the men's event today. Wakaba Higuchi has them in her free skate off the top of my head.
The ice stunts. Why? I think even the commentators mentioned that, oh, there's a knee slide, another knee slide, there it is.
So it was just very tiring to see in person over and over. I was like, oh, and there's more sliding around on your knees.
You're supposed to be skating.
A Jason Brown program is not complete without a Russian split and the knee slide.
Yes.
True.
I remember I was watching, it was the official practice of his free skate, and I was like, because the Russian split is at the very, very, very end, and I was like, if David Wilson has given him a program without a Russian split, I will go to Canada myself and make sure there is a Russian split in it.
Yeah, and yeah, it's very apparent when you're watching every single skater, every single discipline for an entire day straight that it's not just the choreo recycling, but the music recycling. I never want to hear a Libertango again. Or a Schindler's List, but that's a different reason.
So for the pairs at this event, the medalists, we have a gold medalist are Vanessa James and Morgan Siffley. They're from France. They got 210.21. In second place, we have Kristen Moore Towers and Michael Marinaro from Canada. They got 176.32. In third place, we have Haven Denny and Brandon Fraser from USA. They got 164.43.
Okay, so an important thing when we're watching the pairs is often what will come up is chemistry between the pairs. What is it? What does that mean?
Well, personally to me, what makes a good pairs team at least is the feeling that they're skating together as a team rather than two separate people that have just been shoved together by their parents. which is an issue I often find with the juniors, which is fine. They're young and they still have to mature as individual skaters before they can fit together as a working pair.
For me, that's why Vanessa James and Morgan Cypre work so well together, is they have so much chemistry.
They are so good.
I mean, another really important thing, not just chemistry, but also utilising your music well, and that's another thing that James and Cypre do really well. I was particularly impressed with the Triple Lutz throw in the short programme, because it was landed exactly on the music, and it was just so satisfying to watch.
I mean, James and Cypre really stole the show here. They were some 30 plus points ahead of the rest of the field, and it showed like in their skates. They had two mostly clean skates here, bar the triple sal throw in the free skate. I personally preferred their Make It Rain short programme from last season in comparison to this.
This year they're skating to Uninvited by Alanis Morissette, which is, it's good, but it's not quite the same.
I like it. I just thought their Make It Rain programme, at least for me, was one of the more iconic pairs skates.
I mean, it is early days.
It's only ACI. It's hard to compare that to the programs that we've seen mature over one or more seasons.
But overall, and when you compare them to the rest of the pairs at that competition, they're really something else. They stand out to you. Their speed was insane. Just in watching them in practice and watching the other pairs, the jumps had a lot of ice coverage. They zoom down the ice and they rotate really, really quickly, especially in their rotational lift. And they have really interesting positions, which is really nice to see. Because some of the lifts can get really repetitive time after time.
Danny and Frazier had a really snooze-worthy cover of Billie Jean by Michael Jackson for their short programme. I got really excited when Ted said they were going to be skating to Billie Jean, and then it just got really dull, so it was kind of boring. But they did have a really nice lift at the end. It was really nicely timed to the music, and I think the positions they hit were really interesting and innovative.
Unfortunately, I think that was the only element that was really timed to the music at all. And
yeah, pretty much.
Boring covers of fun songs need to die. It's always so disappointing when you think you're getting a program to a really great song and then discover it's a coffee shop version of it.
I feel like this happens a lot with songs that are unconventional for skating, and I'm always just oh, I'm really interested to see how they do that one, and then they just don't.
It happens a lot with Queen. They're like, oh, they're going to be skating the Queen, and everyone's like, whoa, yeah, and then they're like, oh, but it's a SoundCloud rap version, and I'm like, why?
That's how I felt with Yamato Ro's Take On Me cover in the skate.
I was so disappointed.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be 80s synth pop.
On that note, let's move on to the men. For gold, we had Yuzuru Hanyu of Canada.
Correction, from Japan.
Oh, wait a second. He's from Japan. So gold was Yuzuru Hanyu from Japan. He won with 263.65. For silver, we had Jungwon Cha of Korea. He got 259.78. And bronze went to Roman Sadowski of Canada, and he got 233.86.
So what do we want to talk about?
I think we should just go straight into it and talk about Yuzuru's short programme.
So there was a lot of talk.
The thoughts and discourse surrounding it.
I mean, I just want to get out there, before we talk about the discourse, before we talk about any scoring, I really liked it. It was pretty enthralling to watch in person. I don't know how it was on video, but I just want to put out there that it was a good time.
I think it needs to grow on me.
I think it needs to grow on him.
I think with more work, he did say there's still stuff to do, so I think it will get there. Just at the moment, it's a bit underwhelming.
Agreed. I thought it was a promising start.
But I feel like for this program, I actually really do like it, just because, yes, the beginning is kind of really empty, but it does build up, in the middle, and then towards the end it builds up really, really nice.
Although the scores, I think there was a lot more discussion about the scores in the program itself, which I think is almost kind of disappointing.
A little bit. I did put it that maybe the program starts simple with the music and it's simplicity growing into complexity, which isn't a bad concept. It's not a bad thing, because simplicity isn't necessarily it being empty.
I mean, we saw that with Chopin.
Yeah.
That was beautifully simple up until the step sequence.
There was a lot of discussion about him being underscored, though, so do we think he was underscored? I personally don't. If you're viewing the scores in isolation rather than thinking about other competitions, his scores make perfect sense. He had multiple errors. He had areas where he was just going through the motions for the choreography. He had a very little projection engagement, which was why his performance score was below 9. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. This is fine. It's normal. It's September. It's not Grand Prix final. It's not Worlds. And Yuzuru has a very set pattern to his season. He grows throughout the season. He hits his stride around his 3rd competition.
He needs that first pancake.
Yeah. Well, he has 2 first pancakes. And this was actually a good start program for him.
I agree. His combo spin was made invalid and the other spins weren't great. They were pretty awful, to be honest, if we want to really.
The reason, I saw a lot of people wondering why the spin was invalidated, it was basically because he didn't get enough rotations in, on his right leg, so he was doing, a back sit spin. He's supposed to do 3 rotations before he switches feet, but he did not, and so this rule, it was just added recently, and people are still getting used to it, so that's probably why in his mind, it didn't register that he had to do 3 rotations. And yeah, but it's definitely something that if you know Yuzuru, you know he's gonna work on that before the next competition.
Also, all of his jumps, he jumped a quad sal, a triple axel, and a quad toe triple toe combination. They are all in the first half, and so he wasn't awarded an extra bonus for the second half jumps. So for the performance he gave, I think the score was completely fair.
I think the score itself, overall, was fair, but I think that the spread of the score was questionable. It seemed that the grades of execution, I felt that some of the GOEs were pretty generous, but then I felt that some of the PCS was a bit low. So it actually evened out in terms of the score itself. When we were sitting and waiting for the scores to be announced, a lot of people were saying, oh, I'm thinking a 98, 99 range, maybe as high as a 101. So a 97 didn't seem absurdly low when we heard it, but then when the protocols came out, a lot of people were more confused by some of the PCS scores in particular.
I know personally for me, when I wasn't at the competition obviously, but during the wait for the thing, 97 was what I had said is probably what they'll probably give him. So I think looking at the performance, 97 was a fair score for that.
I think some people were expecting a world record, just because he landed all his jumps. But just because he landed them doesn't mean he landed them well or as well as he could. Doesn't mean he interpreted the music as well as he could. And I feel the past few seasons, just the rise in inflation in PCS and GE in general, people are expecting way higher scores. But this season, it's going to be a lot more different in terms of scoring.
Yeah, I think if you're putting his score in comparison with other competitors at other competitions, like Lombardia, it does seem a little bit weird. But the problem is the inconsistency and in the judging. The problem is that other people are being overscored, not that Yuzuru is being underscored. I don't think he deserved more points. I think that some of his other competitors deserved less points. For example, Shoma's short program. I think when I worked out what I would have scored him, I wouldn't have given him 104. I would have given him about 98. So that's more of the problem.
A consistent ISU judging panel is a dream we could only hope for.
I also wonder if some of it is there's standards based on the skaters themselves. So for example, for anyone else, this would be a very good program, a short program showing, I think. But there were a lot of parts where, for Yuzuru, it felt very flat and it needs substantial work.
I think I might agree with you with that. He does seem to have his achievements held over him a little bit, and he is expected by judges and by fans to be more or less flawless every single time.
And this was not flawless.
No, it wasn't. And I do think that to an extent some other skaters do benefit as well from there being invisible other criteria for grade of execution and PCS that is better than expected. And some of the judges maybe need to remember that that is not a valid reason to give extra points. The program does need some work. I think in particular the reason why the beginning part maybe feels a little bit empty is because he doesn't use his arms much. And ISU judges love arm. He does disengage his upper body quite a lot, and he did it in the free skate too. Particularly if you think about the spread eagle. On the outside edge spread eagle, before he changed the inside edge, his upper body was completely disengaged. His arms were just flopping at his side, and he just looked like he was chilling. It didn't look like he was doing choreography. It was like he decided to stop skating for a moment.
But it's something to work on, yeah, for the rest of the season. It's something that naturally develops over the rest of the season. But yeah.
I think if you didn't know this was a competitive not competitive program, because the program itself as a structure is competitive, but a competitive performance, if you didn't know it was based in a competition, you would have thought it was a warm-up, just judging by some of the disengagement in the arms. But then it is only the first season, and he's been made aware of the issues he had here, and I completely trust in him to be able to use them during training to show a better showing going into the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small detail, and I think he maybe was just a little bit too focused on landing the jumps and forgot about the details. So it's just a case of just bringing some tension into that upper body, because there were other areas, and there were areas of the free skate as well, where his arms are just limp at its sides, and it makes him look a little bit too casual about the program. It's a good quality to look effortless while you're skating. It's not so great to look like you're not trying and you don't care. And in the short program, it was actually mildly worrying to watch as a fan.
He did say in the media zone after the short program that he was very nervous for the competition, and from watching the videos from the media day held in the cricket rink during summer and the official practices here at Canada, I think there is a lot more we still have to see from this program. He said in an interview with the Olympic Channel that he wasn't happy with how he skated to the music and that he wants to use it more, so I'm hoping this is more of a nerves and a first competition issue, which I think it is, rather than a program issue or a choreographical issue. I agree with Gina that certain parts of the program, like the crossovers and the long spread eagle, seem a bit casual. Later on in the season, I do wonder if he'll swap his flying camel spin and his combo just in order to get the bonus. I know he has said prior to this competition that he isn't skating now for records and for scores, which I completely understand. I mean, I'm sure 2 Olympic golds are pretty fulfilling enough. But if there's a chance for extra marks, I don't see why he doesn't go for it. But then again, what I personally want Yuzuru to do and what Yuzuru wants to do himself are 2 completely separate things. Following the free skate here though, he has said that his competitive side is more engaged, and that he does his need to win, he thinks, has been re-inspired. So I do wonder if going into Helsinki he will be more tactful, I think, during the entire competition. I think that was one of the things that I noticed. He didn't attack his skates like he usually does.
I mean, you could see the difference between the short program and the free program. The free program had a lot more fire to it. I do hope he does maybe consider swapping the elements in his short program. Those 10 seconds or so of crossovers really bothered me, because that's usually something that holds Yuzuru apart from his competitors, is that he doesn't have moments like that where you feel like the music is completely unutilized and he's just doing crossovers when he should be maybe doing a little bit more.
Yeah, it did feel really unbalanced in person. I remember it was like, okay, so we just did 3 jumps in a row with nothing in between, and now we have multiple spins back to back. And I find that especially when you have spins back to back, because since they're long and sustained, it's very easy for you to start to realize that there's nothing else in between.
Yeah, and I did time it. The start of the crossovers and the end of a jump where he exits the jump is about 13 seconds, and the entry to the flying camel spin and the end of the flying camel spin is also about 13 seconds. So they could be swapped, I think.
Yeah, for like one-footed skating, like maybe he doesn't have to add like too many complicated things, but if you just do like some turns on, like he between those crossovers he does do some turns, so if he can just do those on one foot, that I think that would improve the performance.
I don't think the problem is that he's lacking one-foot skating. It's just that he does the crossovers on a change in the music, which highlights that he's doing nothing. And I think if he swapped the elements, that little piece of music where he's currently doing the spin would be much easier to kind of hide the crossovers in.
But then again, it's a program that builds up, and I think he wants the busier part towards the end.
Oh, that step sequence.
That's just his choice, but yeah.
And the step sequence is nice.
It was honestly quite stunning. Except I really don't like the Hydroblade in the step sequence.
I really liked it during the media day, and I really liked it during the practices. I didn't like it in competition.
It was very short, and it felt almost like he was just checking it off, like, oh, I have to do a Hydroblade.
Yeah, the leap. I'm not really sure. No one really knows what the leap's official title is. I've seen
the
people
not a
call
stag
it.
leap.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't like it here, but I think it wasn't as high. It wasn't as in media day and the videos we've seen in practices. He explodes out of the Hydroblade, and he didn't do that quite as much here. But then I think that, just like the rest of this program, was a performance issue rather than a program issue.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad that we do have that other footage of him practicing it, because it does kind of reassure me that those parts that I have problems with in those practice videos, they're a lot different. So it's not a problem with the program itself, it's just a problem with how we performed it, and it was probably down to nerves.
So shall we talk about the costume?
I hate it.
I hate it too.
I love it.
I'm going to be the moderate voice and say that I like it.
Nina, you're a Shoma stan, of course you like it.
Okay. Any costume with a deep V and a high waist is going to do it for me. But
no, I didn't like it before the news came out, and then the news came out that it was literally a rejected design from Shoma Uno.
I mean, no, that's not official. It's just that like it looks almost identical to Satomi Ito's like old practice design, but it doesn't. It's not like officially.
Yeah, I like the costume as a costume. I'm not sure if I like it on Yuzuru's body type. If it was a costume on a mannequin or a different skater, I think it would be nice. I'm not sure.
If it was a costume on Shoma, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because the reason he has that cut is because he's got tiny little short legs, and Yuzuru doesn't.
Here's the thing about it, is Yuzuru is not a stranger to having costumes that are like really high-waisted to show off his legs. I mean, Let's Go Crazy exists. But I think my issue with it is this one's really high-waisted and has the reverse V to really draw the eye up into the rib cage to make his waist look really high, or to make Shoma's waist look really high. But he puts this massive ruffle around the entire waist hem, and it's really weird to have like the waist highlighting the slimmest part of your body and then stick a giant ruffle on it. It just makes him look very stick-like, and it's because it cuts out the curve of his body.
I understand that it wouldn't be a Yuzuru program without insanely unnecessary ruffle or sparkles or feathers. However,
it's very sparkly and feathery. They can take off the waist
It's
ruffle.
already sparkly. You do not need the ruffle.
I think he got all his ruffles out in Hara Yokoi. He really doesn't need any more.
See, I was really hoping for an autumnal red and gold kind of costume, maybe like Requiem, but red.
I mean, that would have been beautiful, but Johnny Weir's Otoño, the inspiration, was also blue, so it's not terribly surprising.
Yeah, but instead he looks like a cross between Elsa and Shoma, and it's just weird.
Speaking about Yuzuru's free skate, I personally much prefer this program. He is skating to Origin, which is the name of the program. It's inspired from Plashenko's Tribute to Nijinsky program. I'm not sure if my preference of this program is down to the actual performance of it. The performance of his free skate was of a higher standard than the short. There was a lot more attack and fire, which I feel was a result of the short. So I think that this shows that throughout the season he will grow. His I don't care, not I don't care, but his I don't care about results attitude has already changed. He said in an interview with the Olympic Channel again after the free skate that his want to win has been re-inspired. So I think we all knew the.
I like imagining that the want to win was ever
yeah
gone.
I think we all knew. I think we all knew that the I don't care about results facade was never going to last. It's Yuzuru.
Yeah, that was a good 5 minutes. Well done.
Would it really be Yuzuru if he didn't do everything in his power to win and physically scare his competitors with his deaf eyes?
I mean, how much of your enjoyment of this one was because of the costume?
I'd say
a lot of
nearly
it is
95%.
It's so beautiful in person.
The details are beautiful.
You would see it sparkling from across the rink.
And the sparkles are multicolored. From the photos, they were like blue and purple, which is...
Yeah, they were purple. He looked like a dragon.
I love that it's all feathers. It's just beautiful. Well done, whoever made that.
Although it does also match Shelma's old costume.
Here, it's okay.
He's just showing his appreciation of his teammates.
He's done 2 tribute programs. He can do 2 tribute costumes. It's okay. His spins were even a tribute to Javi Fernandez. It's okay. And he did say his quad sal was a tribute to Javi, and I was like, you've done the quad sal your entire senior career. Why is it only now his sal a tribute? He's not.
Javi's not even deaf yet.
Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
Like, he's going to come back right before Spanish nationals and Europeans. It's going to be really
He's probably
awkward.
back in PCC at the moment. He has Japan Open next week.
Yuzuru's just like, I can still see him sometimes just from the corner of my eye.
I do think the step sequence of this programme will be amazing. It wasn't perfect here. I did find it rather slow, or at least slower than what we've seen in practices, but then that was kind of a general theme across all men. Here it wasn't just Yuzuru, so I do think that this programme does have a lot of potential, and I am really excited to see it at his next showing, which is Helsinki.
Yeah, I think overall it was a really good first showing for Yuzuru because he doesn't typically do well in his first competitions. He usually has a very clearly laid out trend that has him skating at his best at precisely the right moment, which is usually Grand Prix final, Worlds, and when it's relevant, the Olympics. So it's fine. I don't mind him having a slightly weak first showing, yeah. He always gets motivated by his early season flops, so...
Also, back to the scoring discourse, which I feel is just kind of a general theme to be expected when Yuzuru skates at this point. There was a lot of conversation surrounding the PCS of the programme, which I agree was... It was low, but I think the PCS marking across the entire competition was low. Yuzuru was awarded 87.9 for his PCS, including 8.7 in transitions and performance. I do think this was valid for his performance as such, because it wasn't completely perfect and there are aspects that need worked on. But I do believe he's in a stable enough position. Yuzuru's free skates on Classic are never good. If we remember the disaster of last year.
He did get gold in Autumn Classic before again, but it's just like because his competition wasn't that high, so it's just it still wasn't his best performance.
And again, Yuzuru wasn't the only one to have abnormally low PCS. Jason Brown received 83.7, and again, whilst his performance wasn't, shall we say, perfect, Jason's PCS are never usually that low.
So, talking about other men, I think it's time to move on. Another skater that got some attention was Junhwan, because his program's a bit weird. His free skate is a bit weird. So he's doing his free skate to Romeo and Juliet, but with a disco twist.
It's weird, but it's perfectly amazing.
I know, I quite like it. I feel like it brings out the fun side in June. And it's just like a really interesting program to like watch from the beginning to end. It's just like you're not expecting the music cuts at all, and it's just like throws you off. You're just entranced into just like watching how the rest of it progresses.
The music cut is both the worst and best thing I think to happen to senior men's this season, and I kind of love that for it. There's insane cuts between soft ballads of Romeo and Juliet and cyber disco that I didn't even know was in Romeo and Juliet, mixed with random voiceovers of Leonardo DiCaprio screaming Juliet at the top of his lungs.
Yeah, we didn't really need that. We don't need the voiceovers, but I mean, if it makes him happy, then it's whatever.
I think it's more of a tribute to the Baz Luhrmann film. So it's not just the Romeo and Juliet. He's also thrown in all the Mercutio club moments from that film as well, which I enjoyed because I like to be reminded that in that film, Mercutio is introduced to us dressed in drag at a disco.
I agree with that the voiceovers could be taken out. However, I don't think the programme would be the same without the Juliet scream, so I'd say keep them in.
True.
Juliet! Let's go to the disco.
I feel like without the voiceovers, it would actually be a lot worse, because the voiceovers are what push it from like weird bad into like so much so that you can only really love it.
Which I think is really Junhwan's brand now.
I mean, he's got like the weird clock hands in the Cinderella short program. He did the peanut butter and jelly X. This is his brand.
I did see someone say Alina and Jun fight for who has the worst music cuts, and whilst they are both...
Daniil only wishes.
And whilst they are both equally as bad, Alina's are just cringy annoying, whereas Jun's are like hilariously annoying, so... I think that says who wins.
I think it has a lot to do with like the energy. The crowd seemed to be really loving Jun's skate. People were jamming. I was jamming.
I think it comes down to personality as well. Alina, we'll see next week, but her program, she kind of skates like she's being forced at gunpoint to skate it, whereas Junhwan is skating this like he's having a great time.
Yeah, although that being said, there's definitely stuff he can work on. I felt that it was really good for showcasing his extensions. He's got some great lines. I love the clock hands, but in the short program, but he was very much too slow for some of the disco parts of the free.
Like his speed and him matching the music notes will become will evolve more naturally as the season progresses and as he gets more comfortable performing this program and pulling it off.
Yeah, I'm really happy for Junhwan. I'm really proud of him. He had a pretty rough season last season with injuries and struggling with a growth spurt. And so it's great to see him have such a strong start to the season now.
Another skater I think we need to talk about is Jason Brown. So this was Jason Brown's first international competition under a different coaching team. He has used Corey Aid, which was his coach last year, for 20 years I think. But he moved to Toronto to join Brian Orser and Tracy Wilson at TCC. I think this was a necessary move after his season last year. It was a pretty rough season. He did make the Grand Prix final after Boyan Jin had to withdraw, but he had a disaster free skate at the US Nationals, and I think after that it was obvious that he was never going to be able to continue to push for one of the top spots if he didn't get a coaching team with technical specialists, which he wasn't having. First, I'd like to talk about the quad sal. He didn't land this in competition. He doubled it in the free skate, which was sad, but he did land it in the free skate practice run through. I know he was having issues with it before the free program, but he did land a beautiful one. And
I'd just like to point out that it's a really good thing that TCC even felt comfortable saying that he should have it planned in his free skate, because that really indicates that it's gotten a lot more stable and a lot more reliable.
I didn't even know he was training a quad sal. I knew he had a quad toe. He's landed it in competition once at 2016 Skate America, I think, which was called under rotated, but I had no idea he was training a quad sal. Never mind, it was stable enough to be including in his layout. His short program, which is Love is a Bitch by 2 Feet, was insane. I loved it. I know some people don't like it as much, I've seen on Twitter, but I personally love it. Rohim Ward, I think, is the perfect choreographer for Jason. I think it's good that he's branching out. His free skate this year is by David Wilson. It's the first time since 2009 from that I could find that he's not using Rohini. But Rohini is an award-winning choreographer for Jason. His Riverdance program remains, in my opinion at least, one of the most iconic programs in our skating generation, if not history. So I think that says a lot about their partnership. So I think it's good that he's branching out with different choreographers, but I do think from what we've seen here that Rohini's style is more, it matches more with Jason's skating style. But then that could be changed with better performance and a cleaner program at further competitions.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in the short program that he seems a lot more confident, and he has matured in a way, I guess. And he seems a lot more comfortable in his own skin. I think that Love is a Bitch short program would not have worked maybe last season.
I think he needed the short hair.
I think it's definitely the haircut.
The haircut did a lot for him.
He looks really hot. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong. He mature is definitely a good word for it.
I mean, Jason usually has really strong Labrador puppy vibes, and I could never take any kind of sexy program seriously from him before because Labrador puppies don't really do it for me.
But now it's like, dang,
now?
Love is a bitch.
Moral of the story, a good haircut solves everything.
Oh yes. Although I wish it could have saved the free skate.
Yeah. He did say during his interview with the USFSA fan zone that he feels lighter when jumping now after the haircut. I don't know how physically accurate, like if
well, maybe the ponytail would like
is.
whip when he would jump. I don't know.
I don't know the physics behind how accurate that is, but if that's what he feels, I think his axle, especially here, has improved a lot from last season. So maybe it is true. Maybe it is the haircut. His free skate this year is to a selection of music by Simon and Garfunkel, choreoed by David Wilson. This was not a good program, shall we say. The program actual structure of it I didn't think I would like when listening to the music. I know some people don't like it, but I think parts of it do bop, and I think when he skates it clean it could be a nice program, but I'm still slightly heartbroken just thinking about his face in the kiss and cry.
He looked so disappointed.
He looked really sad. Although I actually disagree. I think the program doesn't do him a lot of favors. I think it's kind of very closed off and difficult to get into, and the costume is really cheesy looking.
Yeah, I don't
think it's good if they want to like showcase, you know, like his like sexier side in the short program, and then his free skate if they want trying to do something softer. I don't think it works great for that sort of contrast.
He is kind of going from being hot young man to your granddad
at a bowling alley.
Wow.
I did see that the free skate costume is similar in colours to the short program. They're both the same black, blue, light blue, navy. So I wonder if they did get them in a 2-for-1 deal and the free skate was just the cheaper option.
Oh boy.
A couple more shout outs for the men. So Jillian Yi from Malaysia became the first Southeast Asian skater to land a quad. He landed a quad sal clean in the short. It was downgraded and he did fall in the free, but good attempt, and he did land a clean one, so well done.
I was very happy for him.
He was amazing.
Speaking of other shout outs that were amazing, we should talk about Harry Maddock.
I love him.
What the heck?
My homeboy.
Was that?
He's really entertaining. He was really entertaining last year at Autumn Classic as well.
I heard he had like a Jack Skellington one.
He did. He skated to Nightmare Before Christmas last year, and it was also
the Pumpkin King.
Very entertaining.
Yes. This was just like, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know who he was, and then he showed up for his practice run through in like a Batman muscle print athletic shirt, and I was like, okay, and then he came out in like the full-on purple velvet, and I was like, I can definitely kind of dig this, but I do wonder if he's like secretly into bat jokes as a ship, because that song is very interesting.
Brilliant. And he's such a good entertainer. He doesn't really have the technical there. He doesn't really have the jumps, but he did his best and he made up for it by pure character and force of personality. He's very enjoyable.
He's very natural too. Like all his movements, nothing is forced at all. He just matches the music perfectly, and he just, whenever he looks at the judges or looks at somebody, it's just really natural and just adds so much to the music.
I really like the part where he crashes into the judging panel.
I thought, are you okay with it? No, that was intentional.
As someone who is from the British Isles, and I know Gina might also be able to relate, usually we are there isn't usually a lot of British skaters, at least in single disciplines. There is quite a few in ice dance, and especially Irish skaters are they're a rare diamond to find in the dust. So I did like that there was 2 Irish skaters here and there was a British skater. So it was nice to have someone that I could actually support, that I could relate to an extent, rather than having to support all the American and Japanese skaters, because I have no one to support in my patriotic sense of nationalism.
It is rare to have a British skater to be a little bit nationalistic over, but we do have Philip Harris, who does have 2 Grand Prix spots this year. And our last shout out is to Kevin Amos for being amazing.
He blew me away. Also just like, wow, his positions are so creative. He had like the catch foot twizzles, some really amazing sit spins, that like a really good cantilever, but also that like reverse Ina Bauer hydroblade. That was really, he was incredible. The crowd was so into him.
So moving on to ice dance, we had Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poje in first place from Canada with a score of 197.27. We had Olivia Smart and Adrian Diaz in second place from Spain with 171.41. And from Canada as well, we had Caroline Surcease and Shane Ferris in third place with a score of 166.24. And I think we can all agree and admit that Weaver and Poje's free skate was, I'd say, maybe the highlight of the competition.
It was lovely.
Definitely.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was a genuinely touching tribute to Dennis Ten, and it was really obvious that that's what it was from the very beginning, not just choosing the music.
I'm getting chills down my spine, down my arms, really just talking about it. And thinking about that ending pose with their hands like reached up to the heavens. It was really phenomenal.
It was beautifully emotive. I really liked the part where they kind of were embracing each other, like they were helping each other grieve. And I thought that was really beautiful. I did see someone saying that they found watching the program to be quite healing, which I completely agree with. It made me cry, but it was also just a really beautiful moment to think about. Because that music is one of my favourite skates from Dennis Ten as well. It was a privilege to be able to watch him skate to that. And it really highlights to me the importance of embracing the artistic side of the sport. If you just go for pure athleticism, you're celebrating what your body can do. But when you embrace that artistic side and bring it together, it becomes a kind of a celebration about everything about human life. And I think that's a really wonderful thing that this sport can bring to us. And it was very, very deeply touching.
It was emotional, but it wasn't sad emotional. It was like it wasn't a happy emotional, obviously, because it's not a happy subject. But it was more a celebration of his life and his career rather than a memorial in a sad way, if that makes sense. And even without context to the situation, it's a wonderfully beautiful program in its own right. The structure, the choreography of it, their connection is something I've always admired. Their Je Suis Malade program from Canadian Nationals last year has remained my favourite dance program ever, I think, other than Virtue More at the Olympics, which is a given. So I think it was nice to see them. They're not going to be on the Grand Prix circuit, so it was nice to see them here, and it was nice to see them clean, and it was nice to see them given a performance.
Doing this program.
Yeah. And doing it justice. For a first skate at a program, it looked as if it had been at Worlds and they had the entire season to build it up.
Speaking of other dance teams, there were like the ones who were on the podium. They were enjoyable to watch, but I feel like one of the ones that stood out a lot was Wang Liu's free dance. and Wanglu in general. But they're very enjoyable to watch. They have beautiful lifts. But I was honestly very sad to see them not on the podium.
I think honestly they just had a really nice, easy presence on the ice. It just made them nice to watch. I didn't find myself thinking about the elements and saying, was this right, was this wrong? I was just enjoying the performance, and they were the first Asian dance team to break 100 points in the free dance, both in this new system and the old system. Muramoto and Reid from Japan had scored close. They had 98.73 at the 2018 Worlds, but they never broke 100 internationally, so I think this is a good thing for Asian ice dance as a whole, and my Asian ice dance rise.
Yeah, they're really special.
They're a very easy team to like because they skate like they're really enjoying themselves, and that's what I really enjoy about figure skating.
Technical too, they were really, really good. Their twizzles were all really nice. Their spins were absolutely beautiful, especially their layback. They both give a lot of face. You can see like Shuye just mouthing some words as she was skating along and giving just a lot of face and expression. And also, like, one last thing, I'm really glad they changed their dress from Asian Trophy. Like, they just had black plain costumes, but at their first showing of this program, but they did change it so that, like, for the actual Grand Prix, they're going to have these costumes, which are really, really beautiful for this program.
We also want to talk about ladies because there was a very deep field for the female skaters at this event. So gold medal went to Brady Tennell from USA. She got a score of 206.41. Silver medal went to Evgenia Medvedeva from Russia with 204.89. The bronze medal went to May Berenice-Mete from France with 178.89. And it was actually May's birthday on Friday during the day of the women's free program. So happy birthday to her.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was there were some interesting points about the ladies program. Specifically, Evgenia's PCS have dropped significantly since last season. And I don't think her program was different enough to account for all of that.
Yeah, she dropped by 8 points. It's quite a significant change. We're not sure like what to attribute it to.
I saw some people trying to attribute it to maybe some political issues. I think it is a little bit too early to call any trend for Evgenia versus any girls who stayed with Eteri or went back to her. It can be said, though, that the Russian girls are very well scored usually, and the highest scored of all are Eteri's girls. I think this is due to strategy more than the actual quality of what she teaches.
Like the transition spamming or like the constant jump variation, stuff like that.
Yeah. But it is important to remember that Evgenia is dealing with a lot of change at the moment. She's dealing with coaching change, a change in environment, a change in training style, and a change in the style of program she's skating to. She needs time to adjust, and this is her first competition. And even though her performances weren't her best, they weren't very good, and there were some faults exposed, there is also a very clear demonstration of how she can grow in these programs.
Yeah, I think that she clearly was having a little bit of trouble connecting with the tango aspect of her free skate, but I think that she definitely has potential. She even said in interviews that she's like, well, we know what we need to work on, stuff like that.
I know that it's too early to discern whether moving from Eteri has truly impacted her PCS for the entire season. However, the difference between Elizabeth's PCS last season and this season are remarkable for not much different happening in her programs. At Nepela, at least, her PCS has risen. Whether this is a factor of moving back to Eteri or not will remain to be seen throughout the season.
But even with that taken into account, I feel pretty positive for Evgenia going forward this season. Again, I can see quite clearly where she's going to grow in these programs, and I believe that her coaching team can take her there. By the end of the season, I can predict her skating more maturely with more organic interpretation of the music, and better use of her natural charm and personality to make her programs come to life. instead of relying on the rather shallow surface level miming stuff that Eteri's team usually brings up.
I did really enjoy her short program here. It's set to Orange Coloured Sky by Natalie Cole. It's a completely different style from everything we've seen her compete in the past, even down to the costume is completely different. I think she's still getting used to it. She's still a bit slow in some of the faster bits, but she has said herself that this is something that needs to change. She's still getting used to the style, and she has a month before her next competition that she has to work on that. She said herself that she's confident that she'll be able to work on it. So I trust her. I trust her team now, Brian Orser and Tracy Wilson. They have Gabby, and Gabby Dealman is one of the top. She's inconsistent, but she is one of the top ladies in the world. So I do trust them. It's not as if they're going to this completely blind, never having coached a lady skater in their life, which is what some people were reacting like when it was announced that she was coming to TCC, and I did feel like saying, "Do you forget Yuna Kim?"
Oh yeah.
That's a crime in the sport.
Talking about Brady, she won, so well done her. She had 2 very good programs, but there's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine in both of them. She starts both programs the same way, which is standing in one spot and cycling through various poses. And this is something that I really hate when skaters do.
Not just that, but her poses, she doesn't hold positions very well. I find that she doesn't fully extend. And she has a lot of limb, so it's very apparent when she doesn't fully extend into her lines.
Yeah, like she could have really, really good lines. You could pay attention to their placement and just hold her positions a lot longer. They would be quite nice.
However, she definitely has improved from last year. Her interpretation and musicality especially were noticeably better. And her free skate to Romeo and Juliet, I'll admit, I actually rather liked.
Yeah, I didn't really think much of her programs last season, but I think that these were a huge improvement from her, and I really enjoyed watching her, actually.
The short program, she's stepping a little bit out of her comfort zone. Like last season, she was skating to Cinderella, which is kind of like a juniorish program, but now she's gaining a little bit more maturity as she's exploring new types of music to skate to.
So then coming in 5th, so off the podium, but she was really, really enjoyable. We want to give a shout out to Wakaba Higuchi. She is a joy to watch, and she was just really, really, she's really a fighter. You could see that in some of her, in like her free skate for sure. And given that she only had her free skate for like a month because she changed the song, I think that she did pretty well, and I am excited to see what she does in the future.
Her short program is extremely interesting. I think that after she's settled with the choreography a little bit more and starts to really bring out her personality and put some energy into her choreography, it will be a really amazing short program. So I really look forward to see how that grows.
Wakaba, take us to the club.
With Jun.
It's one of those times where I want to pick out of the English language words that represent what I feel and what I just felt with watching that.
So, shoutouts of the week. So, one of our shoutouts for the week goes to Gislain for Gina and Jason's axles. They've improved quite a lot in just this really short off season. So, thank you, Gislain.
You've worked hard. Well done.
I'm a big fan of your work.
Our other shout out goes out to Ted Barton, the camera operator at Skate Canada for Autumn Classic. Thank you very much.
So thank you for listening. We hope to see you again for our next episode, which will be about the Junior Grand Prix events and the Challenger Series events happening over the next 2 weeks.
If you want to get in touch with us, then please feel free to contact us via our website, inthelowpodcast.com, or on Twitter, Tumblr, or Facebook. You can find our episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
If you enjoy the show and want to help support the team, then please consider making a donation to us on our Ko-Fi page. And we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the listeners who have contributed to our team thus far.
You can find all the links to our social media pages and our Ko-Fi page on the website. If you're listening on iTunes, please consider leaving a rating and review if you enjoy our show. Thanks for listening. This has been Gina,
Niamh,
Maryam,
and Nina. Thank you.
Bye.